The Way of Perfection by Teresa of Ávila. Chapter 19 begins to discuss prayer, speaks to souls unable to reason with the intellect. So many days have gone by since I wrote the above, days in which I haven't had time to return to it, that if I don't reread it, I won't know what I was saying. So as not to take up time, I'll have to let this work turn out in whatever way it does, without any order. There are so many good books written by able persons for those who have methodical minds and for souls that are experienced and can concentrate within themselves that it would be a mistake if you paid attention to what I say about prayer. As I say, there are books in which the mysteries of the Lord's life and passion are divided according to the days of the week, and there are meditations about judgment, hell, our nothingness, and the many things we owe God, together with excellent doctrine and method concerning the beginning and end of prayer. There is nothing for me to say to anyone who can form the habit of following this method of prayer, or who has already formed it, for by means of so good a path the Lord will draw him to the haven of light, and through such a good beginning the end will be reached. All who are able to walk along this path will have rest and security, for when the intellect is bound, one proceeds peacefully. But what I would like to speak about and offer a remedy for, if the Lord should will that I succeed, and if I don't, at least you will understand that there are many souls who undergo this trial, and those of you who suffer it will not grow weary, is the following. There are some souls and minds so scattered they are like wild horses no one can stop. Now they're running here, now there, always restless. And if the rider is skillful, there is not always a danger, just sometimes. But even though his life is in no danger, he is not free from some dishonor in mounting the wild horse. And there is always some hardship. This restlessness is either caused by the soul's nature or permitted by God. I pity these souls greatly, for they seem to be like very thirsty persons who see water in the distance, but when they want to go there, they meet someone who prevents their passing from the beginning through the middle to the end. It happens that after they have conquered the first enemy through their labor, and through a great deal of labor, they let themselves be conquered by the second. They would rather die of thirst than drink water so costly. Their efforts cease, their courage fails, and when some have the courage to conquer the second class of enemy as well, their strength gives way when they meet the third. And perhaps they were no more than 2 steps from the fount of living water, of which the Savior said to the Samaritan woman, "Whoever drinks of it will never thirst." How right and true, as words coming from the mouth of truth itself, that such a person will not thirst for anything in this life, although thirst for the things of the next life increases much more than can ever be imagined through natural thirst. How thirsty one becomes for this thirst! The soul understands the great value of this thirst, and even though the thirst is a most painful, wearying one, it brings with it the very satisfaction by which it is assuaged, in such a way that it is a thirst unquenchable except in earthly things. Indeed, this thirst slakes in such a way that when God satisfies the thirst, the greatest favor he can grant the soul is to leave in it this same need, and a greater one, to drink the water again. Water has 3 properties that I now recall as applicable to our subject, for it must have many more. The first is that it refreshes, for no matter how much heat we may experience, as soon as we approach the water, the heat goes away. If there is a great fire, it is extinguished by water, unless the fire burns from pitch. Then it is enkindled more. O God, help me! What marvels there are in this greater enkindling of the fire by water, when the fire is strong, powerful, and not subject to the elements. For this water doesn't impede the fire, though it is fire's contrary, but rather makes the fire increase. It would be a great help here to be able to speak with someone who knows philosophy, for in knowing the properties of things, he would be able to explain to me what I enjoy thinking about but don't know how to speak of, or even perhaps understand. Those of you sisters who drink this water, and you others, once the Lord brings you to drink, will enjoy it and understand how the true love of God, if it is strong, completely free of earthly things, and if it flies above them, is Lord of all the elements and of the world. And since water flows from the earth, don't fear that it will extinguish this fire of the love of God. Such a thing does not lie within its power. Even though the two are contraries, this fire is absolute Lord. It isn't subject to water. Hence, do not be surprised, sisters, about the many things I have written in this book, so that you might obtain this liberty. Isn't it wonderful that a poor nun of St. Joseph's can attain dominion over all the earth and the elements? No wonder the saints, with the help of God, were able to do with the elements whatever they wanted. Fire and water obeyed St. Martin. Even the birds and the fish St. Francis, and so it was with many other saints. There was clear evidence that they had dominion over all worldly things, because they labored to take little account of them, and were truly subject with all their strength to the Lord of the world. So, as I say, the water that rises from the earth has no power over the love of God. The flames of this love are very high, and the source of it is not found in anything so lowly. There are other little fires of love of God that any event will extinguish. But extinguish this fire? No, not at all. Even though a whole sea of temptations comes, the fire will not be put out, and thereby made to lose control over these temptations. For with the help of God, and doing what lies in their power, men can almost seek this love by right. Do you think that because the psalmist says that all things are subject to man and put under his feet, that it is so with all men? Not at all. On the contrary, I see many of them subject to and trampled upon by things. In fact, I knew a gentleman who was killed in a quarrel over a few dimes. What a miserable price he was subject to! There are many things you will see every day from which you will know that I am speaking the truth. If the psalmist couldn't lie, for what he says is from the Holy Spirit, it seems to me that the saying, "they will rule over all earthly things," pertains to the perfect. It could be that I don't understand and am foolish, but I have read this. Well, if it is water that rains from heaven, so much less will it extinguish this fire. The two are not contraries, but from the same land. Have no fear that the one element will do harm to the other. Rather, they help each other produce their effect. For the water of true tears, those that flow in true prayer, readily given by the King of Heaven, helps the fire burn more and last longer, and the fire helps the water bring refreshment. Oh, God help me! What a beautiful and marvelous thing! That fire makes one feel cooler. Yes, and it even freezes all worldly attachments when it is joined to the living water from heaven. Heaven is the source of the tears that were mentioned, for they are given and not acquired through our own efforts. Therefore, this living water will certainly not let the heat from worldly things detain the soul, unless to allow the soul to communicate this fire to others. For by its nature this fire is not content with little. It would burn up the whole world if it could. Another property of water is that it cleans dirty things. What would the world be like if there were no water for washing? Do you know how clean this water is, this heavenly water, this clear water, when it isn't cloudy, when it isn't muddy, but falls from heaven? Once this water has been drunk, I am certain that it leaves the soul bright and cleansed of all faults. Since this divine union is something very supernatural, it is not a matter of our own choosing. As I have written, God doesn't permit a soul to drink this water unless to cleanse it and leave it clean and free from all the mud and misery in which, through its own faults, it was stuck. Other delights that come through the medium of the intellect, however much they may accomplish, come from water running on the ground. They do not come from drinking at the fount. There is never a lack of muddy things to detain one on this path, and the water is not so pure and clean. Living water is not what I call this prayer in which, as I say, there is reasoning with the intellect. I mean from the way I understand things. For something from the road that we don't want will stick to our soul and be helped to cling there by our body and natural lowliness, however much we may want to avoid this. Let me explain myself further. Suppose that in order to despise the world we are thinking about its nature and how all things come to an end. Almost without our realizing it, we find ourselves thinking about the things we like in the world, and in desiring to flee them, we are at least hindered a little by thinking about how they were and how they will be, and what we will do. In order to think of what we must do to free ourselves, we place ourselves in danger again. Not that this reasoning must be abandoned, but one must be fearful. It's necessary to proceed with care. By means of this living water, the Lord himself takes up these cares, for he doesn't want to entrust them to us. He so esteems our soul that he doesn't allow it to be occupied with things that can harm it during the time he wishes to favor it. Rather, he immediately places it near himself and shows it in an instant more truths, and gives it clearer understanding of what everything is than we could have here below in many years. For our eyes don't see clearly. The dust blinds us as we walk. By this living water the Lord brings us to the end of the journey, without our understanding how. The other property of water is that it satisfies to the full and takes away thirst. To me it seems that thirst signifies the desire for something of which we are in great want, so that if the thing is completely lacking, its absence will kill us. How strange that if water is lacking, this lack kills us, and if there is too much, we die, as is seen through the many who drown. O my Lord, and who will find himself so immersed in this living water that he will die? But is this possible? Yes, because the love of God and desire for him can increase so much that the natural subject is unable to endure it. And so there have been persons who have died from love. I know of one who would have died if God hadn't succored her immediately with such an abundance of this living water, for she was almost carried out of herself with raptures. I say that she was almost carried out of herself because in this water the soul finds rest. It seems that while she is drowning from not being able to endure the world, she is revived in God, and His Majesty enables her to enjoy what in herself she couldn't without dying. It should be understood here that since there can be nothing imperfect in our supreme good, everything He gives is for our good, and however great the abundance of this water He gives, there cannot be too much in anything of His. If He gives a great deal, He gives the soul, as I said, the capacity to drink much. Like a glassmaker who makes the vessel a size he sees is necessary in order to hold what he intends to pour into it. In desiring this water, there is always some fault, since the desire comes from ourselves. If some good comes, it comes from the Lord, who helps. But we are so indiscreet that since the pain is sweet and delightful, we never think we can have enough of this pain. We eat without measure. We foster this desire as much as we can, and so sometimes it kills. How fortunate such a death! But perhaps by continuing to live, we can help others die of desire for this death. And I believe the devil causes this desire for death, for he understands the harm that can be done by such a person while alive. And so at this stage he tempts one to perform indiscreet penances so that one's health will be lost, which would be no small gain for the devil. I say that anyone who reaches the experience of this thirst that is so impelling should be very careful, because I believe he will have this temptation, and although he may not die of thirst, his health will be lost, and he will give exterior manifestations of this thirst, even though he may not want to. These manifestations should be avoided at all costs. Sometimes our diligence is of little avail, for we will be unable to hide everything we would like to hide. But when these impulses that so greatly increase this desire to die come, we should be careful not to add to the desire, but gently cut the thread with another consideration. For our nature at times can be as much at work as the love. There are persons who will vehemently desire anything, even if it is bad. I don't believe these persons will be very mortified, for mortification helps in everything. It seems foolish to cut short something so good, but it isn't. For I do not say that the desire is taken away, but that it is cut short, and perhaps by another desire as meritorious as the former. I wish to say something in order to explain myself better. A great desire is given to see oneself with God and to be loosed from this prison, like the desire St. Paul had. Pain, for a reason like this, must in itself be very delightful. No small amount of mortification is needed to break it off, and one will be unable to do so completely. Sometimes the pain is seen to afflict so much that it almost takes away one's reason. Not long ago I saw a person of an impetuous nature who, even though she was experienced in going against her will, I think she had already lost it, as was seen in other things, was deranged for a while by the great pain and the effort that was made to conceal this pain. I hold that in so extreme a case, even though the experience may come from the Spirit of God, the humble thing is to be fearful, for we shouldn't think we have so much charity that it will put us in such straits. If a person is able, for perhaps he will not always be able, I say that I wouldn't consider it wrong if he were to remove the desire by the thought that if he lives he will serve God more and enlighten some soul that would have been lost, and that by serving more he will merit the capacity to enjoy God more, and let him fear the little that he has served. These consoling thoughts are good for so great a work. His affliction will be mitigated, and he will gain very much, For in order to serve the Lord himself, one should desire to suffer here below and live with the Lord's affliction. It's as when one has a great trial or a heavy sorrow. You comfort him by telling him to be patient and leave it in the hands of God, and that the Lord's will is being done by it. For in every event, the best we can do is leave ourselves in the hands of God. It would be possible for the devil in some way to foster such a great desire. The account is given, I believe, in Cassian, of a hermit who lived a most austere life. The devil made him think that by throwing himself into a well, he would see God more quickly. I truly believe that this hermit could not have served with humility or goodness, for the Lord is faithful, and his majesty would not consent that one be blinded in a manner so obvious. But clearly, if the desire were from God, it wouldn't cause any harm. Such a desire bears light, discretion, and measure. But this adversary and enemy of ours tries to cause harm wherever he can. And since he doesn't go about carelessly, neither should we. This is an important point for many reasons. Thus the time of prayer should be shortened, however delightful the prayer may be, when it is seen that the bodily energies are failing, or that the head might suffer harm. Discretion is very necessary in all. Why do you think, daughters, that I have tried to explain the goal and show you the reward before the battle, by telling you about the good that comes from drinking of this heavenly fount, of this living water? So that you will not be dismayed by the trial and contradiction there is along the way, and advance with courage and not grow weary. For as I have said, it can happen that after having arrived, you will have nothing left to do but stoop and drink from the fount. And yet you will abandon everything and lose this good, thinking that you have not the strength to reach it and that you are not meant for it. Behold, the Lord invites all. Since he is truth itself, there is no reason to doubt. If this invitation were not a general one, the Lord wouldn't have called us all. And even if he called all, he wouldn't have promised, I will give you to drink. He could have said, Come, all of you, for in the end you won't lose anything, and to those whom I choose I will give to drink. But since he spoke without this condition to all, I hold as certain that all those who do not falter on the way will drink this living water. May the Lord, because of who he is, give us the grace to seek this living water as it should be sought, for he promises it. Chapter 20. How, in different ways, consolation is never lacking on the path of prayer. Counsels the sisters to let their conversations deal always with prayer. It seems I contradicted in the previous chapter what I had said before. When I was consoling those who were not contemplatives, I said that the Lord had different paths by which to go to him, just as there are many dwelling places. So I repeat it now. Since his majesty has understood our weakness, he has provided after the manner of who he is. But he did not say, Some come by this path and others by another. Rather, his mercy was so great, he excluded no one from striving to come to this fount of life to drink. May he be blessed forever. And how rightly might he have excluded me? Now, since he didn't stop me when I started to walk along this path, nor order me to be thrown into the abyss, surely he excludes no one. Rather, he calls us publicly, crying aloud. But since he is so good, he does not force us. On the contrary, in many ways he gives drink to those who wish to follow him so that no one will go without consolation or die of thirst. Rivers stream from this overflowing fount, some large, others small, and sometimes little pools for children, for that is enough for them. And, moreover, it would frighten them to see a lot of water. These children are the ones who are at the beginning. So, sisters, do not fear that you will die of thirst on this road. Never is the lack of consoling water such that it cannot be endured. Since this is so, take my advice and do not stop on the road, but, like the strong, fight even to death in the search, for you are not here for any other reason than to fight. You must always proceed with this determination to die, rather than fail to reach the end of the journey. If even though you so proceed, the Lord should lead you in such a way that you are left with some thirst in this life, in the life that lasts forever he will give you to drink in great plenty, and you will have no fear of being without water. May it please the Lord that we ourselves do not fail. Amen. Now, that you might so walk along this path of prayer that you do not go astray at the beginning, let us deal a little with how this journey must begin. For the beginning is the more important part. Indeed, it is the most important part for everything. I don't say that if a person doesn't have the determination of which I shall speak here, he should stop trying, for the Lord will continue perfecting him. And if that person should do no more than take one step, the step will contain in itself so much power that he will not have to fear losing it, nor will he fail to be very well paid. This situation can be compared to that of a person who uses beads to count indulgenced prayers. If he uses them once, he gains the indulgences. If he uses them more often, he gains more. But if he never uses them, keeping them rather in a chest, it would be better for him not to have them. So it is here. Even though afterward a person may not continue on the same road, the little progress he may have made on it will have provided him with light so that he may walk well on other paths, and the greater the progress, the more light. In sum, even if later he gives up, he may be certain that it will not have done him any harm to have begun, for good never produces evil. Thus, daughters, in reference to all the persons who speak with you, if they are disposed and there is some friendship, try to remove any fear they may have of beginning to use so great a good. And for the love of God, I beg you that your conversation always be directed toward bringing some good to the one with whom you are speaking. For your prayer must be for the benefit of souls. And since the good of souls is what you must always beg the Lord for, it would seem wrong, sisters, if you did not strive for this in every way. If you want to be a good relative, this desire to be of benefit to the relative is where true friendship lies. If you want to be a good friend, know that you cannot be one save by this path. Let truth dwell in your hearts, as it should through meditation, and you will see clearly the kind of love we are obliged to have for our neighbor. There's no longer time, sisters, for children's games. For these worldly friendships, even though they may be good, seem to be nothing else. Unless there is a very good reason, and it is for the benefit of that soul, don't let your conversation be of the sort in which you ask, "Do you like me?" or "Don't you like me?" It can happen that in order that your relative or brother or a similar person listen to a truth you want to point out and admit it, you will have to dispose him by means of these words and demonstrations of love that are always pleasing to sensuality. It will happen that a good word, as these are called, will do more and dispose one more than will many about God, so that afterward these latter may be accepted. And thus, if you use them knowingly for the benefit of others, I do not forbid them. But if they are not used for this reason, they will be of no avail, and may do harm without your realizing it. Others already know that you are religious, and that your business is prayer. Don't think to yourself that you don't want them to consider you good, for what they see in you is to the benefit or harm of all. And it is a serious wrong for those who have so great an obligation to speak of God, as do nuns, to think that it is good for them to hide their feelings about God, although they may be allowed to do this sometimes for a greater good. God is your business and language. Whoever wants to speak to you must learn this language, and if he doesn't, be on your guard that you don't learn his. It will be a hell. If they should think you're unsophisticated, what does it matter? If they take you for hypocrites, it matters even less. You will gain in that no one will want to see you except the one who understands this language. There wouldn't be much reason for anyone who doesn't know Arabic to enjoy speaking a great deal with one who knows only that language, and so neither will they make you weary or do you harm. For to begin to speak a new language would cause no small amount of harm, and all your time would be spent in learning it. And you cannot know, as I do, for I have experience of it, the great evil this new language is for the soul. In order to know the one, the other is forgotten. The new language involves a constant disturbance from which you ought to flee at all costs, for what is very suited to this path that we are beginning to discuss is peace and tranquility of soul. If those who speak with you wish to learn your language, though it is not your business to teach anyone, you can tell about the riches that are gained in learning it, since telling of this is beneficial to the other. And when he learns about the great gain that is to be had, he may go and seek out a master who will teach him. It would be no small favor from the Lord if you were to succeed in awakening some soul to this good. But how many things come to mind in beginning to discuss this path, even to the mind of one who has walked it as poorly as I? Would that I had many hands with which to write, so that while putting down some of these things, I wouldn't forget the others. May the Lord be pleased, sisters, that I know how to speak of it better than I have practiced it. Amen. Chapter 21 tells how important it is to begin the practice of prayer with great determination and not pay any attention to obstacles set up by the devil. Do not be frightened, daughters, by the many things you need to consider in order to begin this divine journey which is the royal road to heaven. A great treasure is gained by traveling this road. No wonder we have to pay what seems to us a high price. The time will come when you will understand how trifling everything is next to so precious a reward. Now, returning to those who want to journey on this road and continue until they reach the end, which is to drink from this water of life, I say that how they are to begin is very important, in fact, all important. They must have a great and very resolute determination to persevere until reaching the end, come what may, happen what may. Whatever work is involved, whatever criticism arises, whether they arrive or whether they die on the road, or even if they don't have courage for the trials that are met, or if the whole world collapses, you will hear some persons frequently making objections. There are dangers. So-and-so went astray by such means. This other one was deceived. Another who prayed a great deal fell away. It's harmful to virtue. It's not for women, for they will be susceptible to illusions. It's better they stick to their sewing. They don't need these delicacies. The Our Father and the Hail Mary are sufficient. This last statement, sisters, I agree with, and indeed they are sufficient. It is always good to base your prayer on prayers coming from the mouth of the Lord. In this matter, those who warn us are right, for if our nature were not so weak and our devotion so lukewarm, there wouldn't be any need to compose other prayers, nor would there be need for other books. As I say, I am speaking to souls that cannot recollect their minds in the thought of other mysteries because they think some kind of skill is needed, and there are some minds so ingenious that they're never satisfied with any of their thoughts. So it seems to me now that I should proceed by setting down some points here about the beginning, the means, and the end of prayer. I shall not take time to dwell on more sublime things. No one will be able to take from you these books, the Our Father and the Hail Mary, and if you are eager to learn, you won't need anything else provided you are humble. I have always been fond of the words of the Gospels that have come from that most sacred mouth in the way they were said, and found more recollection in them than in very cleverly written books. I especially had no desire to read these books if the author was not well approved. If then I draw near to this Master of Wisdom, he will perhaps teach me some worthwhile thoughts that will please you. I don't say that I'm going to write a commentary on these divine prayers, for I wouldn't dare. Many commentaries have been written, and even if they hadn't been, it would be absurd for me to write one. But I will mention some thoughts on the words of the Our Father. For sometimes, with regard to many books, it seems we lose devotion in the very exercise in which it is so important for us to have devotion. Clearly, when a master teaches something, he gets to love his disciple and is pleased if that which he teaches satisfies his pupil, and he helps him a great deal to learn the material. The Heavenly Master will do the same with us. Hence, don't pay any attention to the fears they raise, or to the picture of the dangers they paint for you. Wouldn't it be nice if, while desiring to procure a great treasure, I should want to walk without danger along a path where there are so many robbers? It would be a pleasant world if they would let you get the treasure in peace. But for a penny's worth of self-interest, they will go many nights without sleep and disturb you in body and soul. For when you are about to gain the treasure, or steal it, since the Lord says that the violent take it away, by a royal road, and by a safe road, the road chosen by our King and all his elect and saints, they will tell you that there are so many dangers and so many things to fear. How many more dangers are there for those who think they obtain this good without following a road? Oh, my daughters, there are incomparably more dangers for such persons, but people don't know about them until they bump blindly into the true danger when there is no one to give them a hand, and they lose the water entirely without drinking either little or much, neither from a small pool nor from a stream. So you see, how will one journey without a drop of this water on a road where there are so many struggles? It is clear that when it is needed most, they will not have it, and will die of thirst. Because whether we like it or not, my daughters, we must all journey toward this fount, even though in different ways. Well, believe me, and don't let anyone deceive you by showing you a road other than that of prayer. I am not speaking now about whether the prayer should be mental or vocal for everyone. In your case, I say that you need both. Such is the duty of religious. Should anyone tell you that prayer is dangerous, consider him the real danger, and turn from him. Don't forget this counsel, for perhaps you will need it. There will be danger in not having humility and the other virtues, but that the way of prayer be a way of danger, God would never will that. It seems the devil has invented these fears, and so he has been skillful, apparently, in making some who have practiced prayer fall away. And see how blind the world is, for they fail to consider the many thousands who have fallen into heresies and great evils because they didn't practice prayer but engaged in distractions. And if in order to carry on his work better, the devil has caused, among this multitude of persons, some of those who practiced prayer to fall, he has caused as much fear in others about virtuous things. Those who take this reasoning as a refuge in order to free themselves should be on their guard, for they are running away from good in order to free themselves from evil. Never have I seen such a wicked contrivance. It really seems to come from the devil. O my Lord, defend yourself. See how they understand your words in reverse. Don't permit such weaknesses in your servants. Hold fast, daughters, for they cannot take from you the Our Father and the Hail Mary. There's one great blessing. You will always find some who will help you, because this is a characteristic of the real servant of God, to whom His Majesty has given light concerning the true way. In the midst of these fears, the desire not to give up increases within him. He understands clearly where the devil is going to strike, flees from him, and crushes his head. The devil feels more regret over this than he does satisfaction over the many pleasures that others give him. In a time of disturbance, of discord caused by the devil, for it seems all are following him half-blind, because they do so under the guise of zeal, God will raise up someone to open the eyes of these half-blind people and tell them that the devil has placed a cloud in front of them to prevent their seeing the way. Oh, the greatness of God! For sometimes 1 or 2 men alone can do more when they speak the truth than many together. Little by little, souls discover again the way. God gives them courage. If they are told there is danger in prayer, one of these servants of God will strive, if not in words then in deeds, to make known how good prayer is. If they are told that frequent communion is not good, he will receive more frequently. Thus, since there are 1 or 2 who fearlessly do what is best, the Lord at once begins to win back gradually the ground that was lost. Therefore, sisters, give up these fears. Never pay attention in like matters to the opinion of the crowd. Behold, these are not the times to believe everyone. Believe only those who you see are walking in conformity with Christ's life. Try to preserve a pure conscience, humility, and contempt for all worldly things. Believe firmly what Holy Mother Church holds, and you can be sure you will be walking along a good path. Leave aside, as I said, your fears where there is no reason for fear. If someone should raise these fears to you, humbly explain the path to him. Tell him you have a rule that commands you to pray unceasingly, for that's what it commands us, and that you have to keep it. If they tell you that the prayer should be vocal, ask, for the sake of more precision, if in vocal prayer the mind and heart must be attentive to what you say. If they answer yes, for they cannot answer otherwise, you will see how they admit that you are forced to practice mental prayer, and even experience contemplation if God should give it to you by such a means. Chapter 22 explains what mental prayer is. Realize, daughters, that the nature of mental prayer isn't determined by whether or not the mouth is closed. If, while speaking, I thoroughly understand and know that I am speaking with God, and I have greater awareness of this than I do of the words I'm saying, mental and vocal prayer are joined. If, however, others tell you that you are speaking with God while you are reciting the Our Father, and at the same time, in fact, thinking of the world, then I have nothing to say. But if you are to be speaking, as is right, with so great a Lord, it is good that you consider whom you are speaking with as well as who you are, at least if you want to be polite. How can you call the king your highness, or know the ceremonies to be observed in addressing a highest-ranking nobleman, if you do not clearly understand what his position is and what yours is? For it is in conformity with these facts that you must show respect, and in conformity with custom, because you also need to know even the customs. If you don't know them, you will be sent away as a simpleton, and will fail to negotiate anything. And what's more, if you don't know these things well, you will need to find out and even rehearse what you must say. Once it happened to me that, not having been accustomed to speaking with lords and ladies, I had to speak with someone who was to be addressed as your ladyship, and so they had to show me how to say it. Since I am dull and was not used to these titles, I didn't get it right when the time came. I decided to tell her what happened, and, laughing at myself, asked her to allow me to address her with the ordinary form you. And so I did. Well, what is this, my lord? What is this, my emperor? How can it be tolerated? You are king forever, my God. Your kingdom is not a borrowed one. When in the creed the words, "and his kingdom will have no end," are said, it is almost always a special delight for me. I praise you, Lord, and bless you forever. In sum, your kingdom will last forever. Well then, may you never permit, Lord, that anyone who is about to speak to you consider it good to do so only vocally. What is this, Christians, that you say mental prayer isn't necessary? Do you understand yourselves? Indeed, I don't think you do, and so you desire that we all be misled. You don't know what mental prayer is, or how vocal prayer should be recited, or what contemplation is, for if you did, you wouldn't on the one hand condemn what on the other hand you praise. I shall always have to join mental prayer to vocal prayer, when I remember, so that others don't frighten you, daughters. I know how this criticism of mental prayer will end up, for I have suffered some trials in this matter, and thus I wouldn't want anyone to disturb you. It is harmful to walk on this road with fear. It is very important for you to know that you are on the right road. When a traveler is told that he has made a mistake and lost his way, he is made to go from one end to another, and all his searching for the way tires him, and he wastes time and arrives late. Who can say that it is wrong, when we begin to recite the hours or the rosary, to consider whom we are going to speak with, and who we are, so as to know how to speak with him? Now I tell you, sisters, if before you begin your vocal prayer you do the great deal that must be done, in order to understand these 2 points well, you will be spending a good amount of time in mental prayer. Yes, indeed, for we must not approach a conversation with a prince as negligently as we do one with a farm worker, or with some poor thing like ourselves for whom any manner of address is all right. It is only right that we consider these 2 points, since, because of his humility, this king listens to me and lets me approach him, and his guards do not throw me out, even though as an uneducated person I don't know how to speak to him. The angels who assist him know well the attitude of their king, for he delights more in the unpolished manners of a humble shepherd who he realizes would say more if he knew more, than he does in the talk of very wise and learned men, however elegant their discourse, if they don't walk in humility. But just because he is good doesn't mean that we should be rude. At least, in order to thank him for the bad odor he must endure in consenting to allow one like myself to come near him, we should strive to be aware of his purity and of who he is. It's true that upon approaching him, one understands immediately, just as with lords here below, for when they tell us who their father was, and about the millions they get in rent, and of their title of dignity, there's no more to know. In fact, here below, people in paying honor don't take into account the persons themselves, however much these persons may deserve the honor, but their wealth. O miserable world! Praise God very much, daughters, because you have left something so wretched, where men pay attention not to what they have within themselves, but to what their tenant farmers and vassals have. And if these men lack subordinates, then no honor is paid them. It's something amusing to relax over when you all have to take some recreation, for this is a good pastime, to notice how blindly those who are in the world spend their time. O our Emperor, supreme power, supreme goodness, wisdom itself, without beginning, without end, without any limit to your works. They are infinite and incomprehensible, a fathomless sea of marvels, with a beauty containing all beauty, strength itself. O God, help me, who might possess here all human eloquence and wisdom together in order to know how to explain clearly, insofar as is possible here below, because, in this case, all knowledge is equivalent to knowing nothing, a number of the many things we can consider in order to have some knowledge of who this Lord and good of ours is. Yes, bring yourselves to consider and understand whom you are speaking with, or, as you approach, with whom you are about to speak. In 1,000 lives we would never completely understand the way in which this Lord deserves that we speak with him, for the angels tremble before him. He commands all. He can do all. For him to will is to do. Well, then, it is only right, daughters, that we try to delight in these grandeurs our spouse possesses, and that we understand whom we are wedded to, and what kind of life we must live. O God, help me! Here below, before getting married, a person will know the other party, who he is and what he possesses. We are already betrothed, and before the wedding must be brought to his house. Here below they don't try to make those who are betrothed renounce such thoughts. Why should they try to prevent us from thinking about who this man is, who his father is, what country he is going to bring me to, what good things he promises to give me, what his status is, how I can make him happy, and in what ways I can please him, and from studying how I can conform my way of life to his. Now, if a woman is to be happily married, she must, according to the advice she receives, strive for this conformity, even though her husband is a man of lowly estate. Well, my spouse, must they in everything pay less attention to you than to men? If paying more attention to you doesn't seem right to them, let them at least leave your brides alone, for these latter must live their lives with you. Indeed, their life is a good one. If a spouse is so jealous that he doesn't want his bride to talk to anyone, it would be a fine thing if she didn't think about how she might please him in this matter, and the reason she has for putting up with this jealousy, and for wanting to avoid speaking with another, since in him she has all that she could want. This is mental prayer, my daughters, to understand these truths. If you should want to grow in understanding these things and pray vocally, well and good. You should not be thinking of other things while speaking with God, for doing so amounts to not knowing what mental prayer is. I believe the matter has been explained. May it please the Lord that we know how to put it into practice. Amen. Chapter 23 treats of how important it is for one who has begun the path of prayer not to turn back, and speaks once more of the great value that lies in beginning with determination. Well now, I say, there are so many reasons why it is extremely important to begin with great determination that I would have to go on at much length if I mentioned them all. Sisters, I want to mention only 2 or 3. One is that if we resolve to give something, that is, this little care, to someone who has given so much to us, and continually gives, giving this little care is certainly to our advantage, and we thereby gain so many wonderful things. There is no reason for failing to give with complete determination. There's no reason for being like the lender who gives something with the intention of getting it back again. Lending doesn't seem to me to amount to giving. Rather, there is always some displeasure felt by the borrower when the object is taken back, especially if he needs it and has already used it as his own, or if the lender is his friend, or if the borrower has given the lender many gifts without any self-seeking. The borrower would rightly think there was very little love in the lender who won't even let him keep a little thing, not even as a sign of love. What bride is there who, in receiving many valuable jewels from her bridegroom, will refuse to give him even a ring, not because of what it is worth, for everything belongs to him, but to give it as a pledge that she will be his until death? Does this Lord deserve less, that we should mock him by giving and then taking back the trifle that we gave him? But this little bit of time that we resolve to give him, which we spend on ourselves and on someone who will not thank us for it, let us give to him, since we desire to do so, with our thoughts free of other things and unoccupied by them, and let us be wholly determined never to take it back from him, neither because of trials on this account, nor because of contradictions, nor because of dryness. I should consider the time of prayer as not belonging to me, and think that he can ask it of me in justice when I do not want to give it wholly to him. In saying wholly, I do not mean that abandoning it for a day or for a few days on account of some just occupations, or because of some indisposition, is the equivalent of taking it back. Let the intention be firm. My God is not at all touchy. He doesn't bother about trifling things. Thus you will have something to be grateful for. This intention amounts to giving something. As for others, for anyone who is not generous, but so stingy that he doesn't have the spirit of giving, it is enough for them to lend. In the end, one who lends does do something, and this Lord of ours takes everything into account. He adjusts himself to our way of giving. In taking account of us, he is not at all petty, but generous. However great our debt may be, he finds it easy to pardon. But when there is a question of his repaying us, he's so careful that you need have no fear. Just the raising of our eyes in remembrance of him will have its reward. Another reason for beginning with determination is that the devil will not then have so free a hand to tempt. He is extremely afraid of determined souls, for he has experienced the great harm they do him. And all the harm he plans to do them turns out to their benefit, and to that of others as well, and he comes out with a loss. But we should not be careless or trust in this fact, for we are dealing with traitors, and they don't dare attack so often those who are well prepared. They are very cowardly. But if the devil should see carelessness, he would do great harm. And if he knows that someone is changeable and unstable in being good, and not strongly determined to persevere, he will keep after him day and night. He will cause fears and never-ending obstacles. I know this very well through experience, and that's why I'm able to say, and do say, that no one knows how important determination is. The other reason for beginning with determination is, and it is very much to the point, that the person who does so struggles more courageously. He knows that come what may, he will not turn back. As in the case of one who is in a battle, he knows that if he is conquered, they won't spare him his life, and that if he doesn't die in battle, he will die afterward. He struggles with greater determination and wants to fight like a desperado, as they say, and he doesn't fear the blows so much, because he is convinced of how important victory is, and that for him to conquer is to live. It's also necessary to begin with the assurance that if we don't let ourselves be conquered, we will obtain our goal. This without a doubt, for no matter how small the gain, one will end up being very rich. Don't be afraid that the Lord will leave you to die of thirst, for he calls us to drink from this fount. I have already said this, and would like to say it many times, for the devil intimidates persons who don't yet fully know the goodness of the Lord through experience, even though they know it through faith. But it is a great thing to have experienced the friendship and favor he shows toward those who journey on this road, and how he takes care of almost all the expenses. I'm not surprised that those who have not experienced this want the assurance of some gain for themselves. Well, you already know there is the 100-fold, even in this life, and that the Lord says, "Ask, and you will receive." If you don't believe His Majesty in the sections of His Gospel that ensure this gain, it will be of little benefit, sisters, for me to break my head in trying to tell you about it. Nevertheless, I say that should anyone have some doubt, little would be lost in trying the journey of prayer. For this journey brings with it the following good. More is given than is asked for, beyond what we could desire. This is absolutely true, I know, and those of you who know it by experience, through the goodness of God, can be my witnesses. Chapter 24. How vocal prayer must be recited with perfection, and mental prayer joined with it. Now then, let us speak again to those souls I mentioned that cannot recollect or tie their minds down in mental prayer or engage in reflection. Let's not mention here by name these two things, since you are not meant to follow such a path. As a matter of fact, there are many persons seemingly terrified by the mere term mental prayer or contemplation, and perhaps one of these might come to this house, for as I have also said, not everyone walks by the same path. Well, what I now want to counsel you about, I can't even say teach you because, as a mother, having the office of prioress, I'm allowed to teach, is how you must pray vocally, for it's only right that you should understand what you're saying. And because it can happen that those who are unable to think about God may also find long prayers tiring, I don't want to concern myself with these. But I will speak of those prayers we are obliged as Christians to recite, such as the Our Father and the Hail Mary, so that people won't be able to say of us that we speak and don't understand what we're speaking about, unless we think it is enough for us to follow the practice in which merely pronouncing the words is sufficient. I'm not concerned with whether this is sufficient or not. Learned men will explain the matter to those persons to whom God gives light to ask the question. And I'm not meddling with what doesn't belong to our state. What I would like us to do, daughters, is refuse to be satisfied with merely pronouncing the words. For when I say I believe, it seems to me right that I should know and understand what I believe. And when I say Our Father, it will be an act of love to understand who this Father of ours is, and who the Master is who taught us this prayer. If you reply that you already know this and that there is no reason to recall it, you are wrong. There is a large difference in teachers, but it is even a great misfortune if we forget those who teach us here below. Especially if they are saints and spiritual masters and we are good disciples, it is impossible to forget them, but we love them very much and even take pride in them and often speak of them. Well, God never allows us to forget the Master who taught us this prayer, and with so much love and desire that it benefit us. He wants us to remember Him often when we say the prayer, even though because of our weakness we do not remember Him always. Now, with regard to vocal prayer, you already know that His Majesty teaches that it be recited in solitude. This is what He always did when He prayed, and not out of any need of His own, but for our instruction. It has already been mentioned that one cannot speak simultaneously to God and to the world. This would amount to nothing more than reciting the prayer while listening to what is being said elsewhere, or to letting the mind wander and making no effort to control it. There can be exceptions at times, either because of bad humors, especially if the person is melancholic, or because of faint feelings in the head, so that all efforts become useless. Or it can happen that God will permit days of severe temptation in His servants for their greater good. And though in their affliction they are striving to be quiet, they cannot even be attentive to what they are saying, no matter how hard they try. Nor will the intellect settle down in anything, but by the disordered way it goes about, it will seem to be in a frenzy. Whoever experiences the affliction these distractions cause will see that they are not his fault. He should not grow anxious, which makes things worse, or tire himself trying to put order into something that at the time doesn't have any, that is, his mind. He should just pray as best he can, or even not pray, but like a sick person strive to bring some relief to his soul. Let him occupy himself in other works of virtue. This advice now is for persons who are careful and who have understood that they must not speak simultaneously to both God and the world. What we ourselves can do is to strive to be alone. And, please God, it will suffice, as I say, that we understand to whom we are speaking, and the answer the Lord makes to our petitions. Do you think He is silent? Even though we do not hear Him, He speaks well to the heart when we beseech Him from the heart. And it is good for us to consider that He taught this prayer to each of us, and that He is showing it to us. The teacher is never so far from his pupil that he has to shout, but he is very close. I want you to understand that it is good for you, if you are to recite the Our Father well, to remain at the side of the Master who taught this prayer to you. You will say that doing so involves reflection, and that you neither can nor want to pray any other way but vocally, for there are also impatient persons who like to avoid any suffering. Since such individuals do not have the habit, it is difficult for them to recollect their minds in the beginning, and so as to avoid a little fatigue, they say they neither can nor know how to do anything else than pray vocally. You are right in saying that this vocal prayer is now, in fact, mental prayer. But I tell you that surely I don't know how mental prayer can be separated from vocal prayer if the vocal prayer is to be recited well, with an understanding of whom we are speaking to. It is even an obligation that we strive to pray with attention. Please God that with these remedies we shall recite the Our Father well, and not end up in some other irrelevant thing. I've experienced this sometimes, and the best remedy I find is to strive to center the mind upon the one to whom the words are addressed. So be patient, and strive to make a habit out of something that is so necessary, if you are to be good nuns, and even pray as good Christians, in my opinion. Chapter 25 tells how much the soul gains through a perfect recitation of vocal prayer, and how God happens to raise it from this prayer to supernatural things. To keep you from thinking that little is gained through a perfect recitation of vocal prayer, I tell you that it is very possible that while you are reciting the Our Father or some other vocal prayer, the Lord may raise you to perfect contemplation. By these means His Majesty shows that He listens to the one who speaks to Him. And it is His grandeur that speaks to the soul, suspending one's intellect, binding one's imagination, and, as they say, taking the words from one's mouth. For even though the soul may want to do so, it cannot speak unless with great difficulty. The soul understands that without the noise of words, this divine Master is teaching it by suspending its faculties, for if they were to be at work, they would do harm rather than bring benefit. They are enjoying without understanding how they are enjoying. The soul is being enkindled in love, and it doesn't understand how it loves. It knows that it enjoys what it loves, but it doesn't know how. It clearly understands that this joy is not a joy the intellect obtains merely through desire. The will is enkindled without understanding how. But as soon as it can understand something, it sees that this good cannot be merited or gained through all the trials one can suffer on earth. This good is a gift from the Lord of earth and heaven, who in sum gives according to who He is. What I have described, daughters, is perfect contemplation. Now you will understand the difference that lies between perfect contemplation and mental prayer. Mental prayer consists of what was explained: being aware and knowing that we are speaking, with whom we are speaking, and who we ourselves are, who dare to speak so much with so great a Lord. To think about this and other similar things, of how little we have served him and how much we are obliged to serve him, is mental prayer. Don't think it amounts to some other kind of gibberish, and don't let the name frighten you. To recite the Our Father or the Hail Mary or whatever prayer you wish is vocal prayer. But behold what poor music you produce when you do this without mental prayer. Even the words will be poorly pronounced at times. In these two kinds of prayer, we can do something ourselves with the help of God. In the contemplation I now mentioned, we can do nothing. His Majesty is the one who does everything, for it is his work and above our nature. Since I explained contemplation very much at length, and as best I could in the account of my life, that I said I wrote for my confessors, for they had ordered me to write that account, I will not speak of contemplation here or do any more than touch upon it. Those of you who have been so fortunate as to be brought by the Lord to the state of contemplation may, if you can get that account, find there some advice and counsel which God granted that I be able to give. It will be very consoling and beneficial to you. This is what I think, and so do some of those who have seen it, for they have the account in order to make a judgment about it. What shame I feel in telling you that you should pay attention to something I have done, and the Lord knows the embarrassment with which I write much of what I write. May he be blessed for so putting up with me. Those of you who, as I say, experience supernatural prayer may obtain that account after my death. Those of you who do not need not worry about obtaining it, but only about striving after what is contained in this present book, and leave the rest to God. For it is he who must bestow supernatural prayer, and he will grant it to you if you do not stop short on the road, but try hard until you reach the end.